Hey guys, we are here. It's the end of the day. Usually I do this in the beginning of the day, but all is well. Just gonna go over my notes from Luke 14, and it was a really good chapter. There are 35 verses in this chapter. And so let me go to the top. It starts out with Jesus being at the Pharisees' house on a Sabbath. And there's something about this Sabbath that they keep like having a problem with. Obviously in chapter 13 we talked about how he was like telling them like every day is a day that we have opportunity to love on people and to heal them and all of that. And these Pharisees be hating. So it starts out with, on one Sabbath, Jesus went to eat in the house of a prominent Pharisee. He was being carefully watched. Like, y'all, back up. Then there was a man that suffered with abnormal swelling of his body. And Jesus went and said, "Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? Like, are y'all still gonna be tripping?" But they were quiet. Like, that's what I thought. Okay, leave me alone. So that's verse 4. They were silent. So he took a hold of the man and he healed him and sent him on his way. And then he just went on to say, like, if you guys have a child or an ox that falls into a well on the Sabbath day, will you not immediately pull it out? Like, is that not an emergency? And they still said nothing. And so when he noticed how guests picked their places at the table, he started telling this parable. So what I'm learning is like Jesus observes quietly and then he corrects, not putting you on blast or trying to embarrass you, but just helping you to reflect and be like, oh, okay. And so it says, the parable talks about how, like, when someone invites you to a feast, if you pick the seat of honor, then you can be embarrassed when there's someone else that comes and they ask you to get up and then you go to the lowly seat or whatever. But instead, it's better to sit at the lowest place. And if you are honored, then they will invite you to sit in the place of honor. And so that's a better approach to that. Let me see if I didn't really write anything down about that. But the next part talks about, then Jesus said to his host, like, when you host a dinner or lunch, like, don't just invite friends and family because, you know, they'll end up inviting you in return. But you need to invite, like, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. That's verse 13. And you will be blessed. Like, although they can't repay you physically or even invite you to their home, you'll be repaid in righteousness. You'll be repaid in righteousness. And so that was just really cool to me because sometimes, like, when I think about the homeless, or even like when I want to pick up the homeless off the street or whatever, firstly my flesh is questioning, like, okay, are they really homeless? Here where I live, there's not as much of homeless people as there was in California. And so there's always like, well, that's a blessing, number one. But two, it's like, okay, are you really homeless or what is this? So you're like, you kind of become desensitized to, if you allow yourself, you can become desensitized to people that are in need. And so that was a good reminder of, like, you don't need to just be inviting like people that can like repay you or anything. You need to be loving on the strangers, loving on the homeless. And so that was a good little reminder. And then there's a parable of the great banquet, and let's see, verse 15 says, when one of those at the table heard him say this, he said to Jesus, "Blessed is the one who will eat at the feast in the kingdom of God." And Jesus said, "A certain man was preparing So he didn't even like respond to him. He just started telling a story. A certain man was preparing a great banquet and invited many guests. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servants to tell who had been invited, "Come, for everything is now ready." So basically the servants went out and they told them, "Hey, it's time to eat," basically. And they were like, "Well, I can't because I just got married," or I just bought a field. I have to go see about it," or, all these excuses. So they couldn't come to his dinner. And the servant came back to report to his master saying, like, they couldn't come. And the owner became angry and said to his servant, "Okay, go to the streets and bring in the poor, bring in the crippled, bring in the blind and the lame." And the servant said, "We already did that." Like, so first of all, let's just talk about this servant. Like, the fact that you own it, that you know your master's heart and that you can anticipate the needs of that master, that's amazing, okay? As, like, getting outside of the mindset of an employee, but like as a business owner, you look for those qualities in like assistants or whatever, people that are on your team, because you want people to be anticipating needs and to be filling those needs. So shout out to that servant in this story. But then he said, "We already did that." And then the master said, "We'll go out to the roads and the country lanes and compel them to come so that my house will be full." So this master just basically didn't want his stuff to go to waste, but he wanted to be able to share. And I know some people, like my husband's like that. He just enjoys giving and loving and like just sharing. Like that brings his heart joy. And so I think of him in that. And he said, "I tell you, not one of those who are invited will get a taste of this banquet." And so the initial people that were invited, he's like, "Bye, you ain't getting none of this, not even the leftovers." I feel like that's a little petty, but I mean, it's the story, okay? And so what did I write about that? I just said those were initially invited, their invitations got revoked. And so thinking spiritually, like when Jesus invites us to his banquet, because, initially they talked about blessed is the one who will eat at the feast in the kingdom of God. So this story is obviously about that. So when he invites us to feast in the kingdom of God, like, let's not be too busy for him. Let's not say, "Oh, I just got married, I don't have time. Oh, I just bought this business, I got to do this." Like, let us take the time and like go eat with the Lord, And then Jesus goes on to, well, I don't even know who wrote, I guess Luke goes on to talk about the cost of being a disciple, with the examples of like large crowds are following Jesus. And he turned to them and said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate their father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, then such a person cannot be their disciple." And so that, to me, it was just like, wow, like, God, you gave us these people. Like, when I think about my immediate family, my husband, my kids, you gave me these people, and you're saying if I don't hate them, then I can't be your disciple. And I am struggling with that because I'm like, okay, I need to go deeper into that. So by no means am I a pro at interpreting the Bible or anything. This is just like me trying to learn, and like, let's learn together, and iron sharpen iron. And so I'd love to get your feedback. But so if anyone has any thoughts about that, let me know. And then he goes on to say an example, like, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the costs and see if you have enough money? Or before you start laying the foundation, then you don't have enough money to finish it, like, then you'll be embarrassed. Or say that there's a king that wants to go to war, and won't he first sit down and evaluate his resources, like how many men he has, before he goes out and fights another country or whoever, an enemy that has double the amount of armies? And then if he's not able to overcome them, he'll send out a person or delegate, and while they're still far away, like trying to come to peace before they meet, because like he's already like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. We're not about to fight today. We ain't gonna do it. So anyway, so that's verse 32. And then it ends with saying, in the same way, those of you who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciples. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? In verse 35 says, it is fit neither for the soil nor for the manure pile. It is thrown out, talking about the salt. Whoever has ears, let him hear. Whoever has ears to hear, let him hear. And so I think that last part, just saying whoever has ears to hear, let him hear, because a lot of people, just like me, I have before, like, I'm trying not to do this, but I still struggle with it, is I just read the Bible because it's something I'm supposed to do, and then go on about my day. But like, if you have ears to hear, like, you're gonna sit and think about it and say, okay, how does this apply? What does this mean to me? And how can I incorporate that into my life? And so anyway, it's like, okay, in the same ways, those who do not give up everything cannot be my disciples. So again, going back to, if you don't hate your brother, mother, sister, brother, all those people, you can't be his disciple. So I'm still like struggling. And I even am remembering a verse, I don't know where it was. I feel like it was earlier in this book, Luke 5 or something, where it talked about the guy was like, I want to follow you, but just let me go, like, say goodbye to my dad or my family. And he's like, nope. Like, ain't nobody got time for that. If you gonna be mine, if you gonna, like, or if you're gonna be mine. And then another example is like, well, let me go bury my whoever. And he's like, let the dead bury the dead. Like, you got purpose, let's go. So it's kind of like, okay, if with those examples, or even with this, like, if God were to say, Ebony, like if I saw him at work or some place where I'm not with my family, grocery store, and he's like, Ebony, let's go. And I'm like, okay, but like, can I go say bye to my kids? Like, can I go say bye to my husband? And he's like, no, they're good. And so it's like, I don't know how I would feel. Like, I mean, of course I'd feel like amazing that I was chosen and all of that, but it's like, okay, like, what would I, like, literally do? Like, in my mind, I would say I would just be like, okay, I'm sure he'll tell Ryan that I'm with him and, they'll be fine. But, like, my flesh is like, but then I just was, thought about, like, you don't get to choose when you die. So I guess I would be going, because if I had died or gotten a car accident that day, then I wouldn't have a choice to be like, well, let me go say goodbye, or let me go kiss them, or, And that's why it's so important for us to be, like, loving intentionally every day. Like, we just don't know the time or the hour or the minute, like, you want to be able to leave this earth without hesitation, and you want to be able to be like, okay, I did the best that I could. And so there, I just answered my own question. Like, if God came back and wanted me to do something, I'm going to do it, because I'm going to purposefully live in a way that's going to allow them to know I love them and I would never abandon them. And, like, God would handle that piece of it, of the questioning and all of that. Like, his kingdom comes first. And so I'm not saying it'd be easy, but that's that. I don't know about that strong word hate. I wonder what the interpretation of that, like if you don't hate your people, then you can't be my disciple. Like, because I looked up hate, and the meaning of hate is feel intense or passionate dislike for someone, or intense or same thing. The verb and noun of it is intense or passionate dislike. Synonyms are loathing, hatred, detestation, dislike, distaste, abhorrence, abomination. So I'm gonna have to sit with that, because I mean, people can take that literally and be like, well, I hate you and I love Jesus, and I know that's not what that means. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope like something spoke to you, and if nothing else, I hope it's encouraging you to like, you know, read the Bible and share with people, because we just need to learn how to grow. Because I literally don't like know what I'm doing, but I'm trying and I'm learning, and I enjoyed having the accountability. So have a great day, guys. I hope all is well where you are, and remember to be loving today and come back to read more with me.